welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Mike. With me, as always, my good friend, Andrew. And today we're going to do a little bit something different because, as many of you may or may not know, over the weekend on July 4th, Mark Snow passed away. He, of course, is the famed and decorated composer who primarily worked on the X-Files. It was a bulk of his career. Many other things, but we were coming together to kind of do a little bit of a tribute to him and show some examples of why his music means so much to us and the show. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing really well, Mike. And when we first started talking about this, the first thing I did was I did a search through my notes just for the term Mark Snow to see how often I referenced him. It's about 75% of the notes that I've taken in all of the episodes that we've done had some reference to the music that he had created. It is such a pivotal part of every episode. And this has been fascinating, just sort of reviewing what I had set up to now and realizing how much he transformed, his own oeuvre during the show. Like, it starts off one thing, and then he goes into so many different creative directions. We're obviously going to get into that, but
right.
Just in the top-down view, he's such a pivotal part of the show that it would be wrong not to have this episode.
Yeah, and I want to, again, thank you for jumping on this a little sooner than I wanted to, but you're right. I think today would be a perfect day to do it because we just happened to be recording today a few days after this happened. I didn't think we could swing this that quickly, but I'm glad we're here doing it now. And yeah, I mean, Mark Snow, outside of the X-Files, he did countless television and film scores. He was 78 when he passed, so I would not say it was a timely death. I think he went far too soon, but as fans of the X-Files, we know his work well, and some of us, dare I say all of us, feel that without, like you're saying, Andrew, without his contributions and musical insight, the show definitely would have suffered. He was the voice of the show in many ways, informing our minds to each scene, bringing them to life in numerous ways, both enjoyably and disturbingly. So yeah, I really look forward to talking about him for a little bit, kind of going over some of our favorite cues and themes to kind of put on display what he's best known for and the versatility of his craft. Anyone who doesn't know, Mark Snow is a student of music. He got his start early and he went to Juilliard after high school. He studied music and was roomed with, of all people, Michael Kamen.
And who is Michael Kamen?
Michael Kamen is a prolific composer, mostly of film, I would say. If you know films like Die Hard, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Lethal Weapon, plenty of others. So it's just fucking awesome that those two roomed together. I didn't even know that, but the fact that they were friends was really cool to learn. I'll state it simply. Mark Snow, while I was reviewing his work for today's show, he was never out of work. This man was busy. He started working on television in I think 1975 with The Rookies, did a few episodes there, and then consistently he had work, but I'd say he found his first real success on Heart to Heart, in which he composed a whopping 93 episodes.
Is that more than the X-Files, I wonder?
It is not.
Do we have a count?
How many X-Files, did you do for the X-Files? X-Files, he did every episode. So
yeah,
that's over 216 episodes, plus 2 films. That is by far and away the most work he's done for one project. But he did have a few other shows that he, I think, was brought on as the main composer for. In 86, he did Falcon Crest. In 92, he did Dark Justice. And those were like 40 to 50 episodes each. Maybe a little bit more.
Dark Justice, is that the show where he made the sort of techno nightclub music that shows up in Gender Bender?
That very well could be.
Yeah.
I know we brought that up in Gender Bender, but I can't remember if that's the show. But it sounds like it because it was a cop show.
Yeah, exactly. And boy, was it out of place at X-Files.
Yes. But they had to use it somewhere.
Yeah, he's like, listen, I got this in my back pocket. I've always wanted to have it, air. I know you wanted, 9-inch nails, but we couldn't license it. So there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not 100% knocked out of everything out of the park, but, his work in general struck a chord with Chris Carter, who was introduced to Snow through R.W. Goodwin. They had a mutual friend there. And it was a match with a goal for the show that seemed to line up with each other. The X-Files, again, is the bulk of his career.
Apparently, they also shared an agent. That is the one thing that I think the AIs haven't lied to me about when we're searching.
Can't trust that AI.
That is so funny because I think both Mike and I did some research into Mark Snow's history, and I asked where they first collaborated, and I got a response of the Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., and I kept on asking Mike why he wasn't including that note in the notes for this show. And Mike comes back saying, I don't think that happened. I have no evidence of that.
I think
so then I went on to query it with more AI, and it came back to say, it basically told me, I don't know where you heard that. Whereas I got to say, you literally told me that's how they met.
You must be mistaken, says the AI.
You, sir, must be mistaken. I don't know where you would have understood that to be. So yes, they do apparently have an agent in common, but otherwise, as you say, it was R.W. Goodwin who joined them up. And what was that first meeting like? This was about the theme song, yeah?
I believe it was Chris Carter was joining Snow in his garage or something, wherever he had his little makeshift studio. And he just was there for a half an hour, kind of listening to previous work and kind of auditioning for the job. And it sounds like it turned out well. He hired him a couple weeks later, as soon as production started for the X-Files itself. Now, it wasn't all smooth and, happy, but famously, he had a hard time coming up with the right mood for the intro song. And he supplied Carter with numerous attempts to which the creator gently let him down. Just wasn't what they were looking for. But he did, to Chris Carter's kindness, I should say, he gave him a lot of time to kind of work it out and kept giving him room to grow and come up with something. They had a meeting one day, and at the end of the meeting, they kind of a little bit of frustration after Chris Carter left, and Snow famously kind of got fed up and put his elbow or arm on the keyboard by accident, and out pops a little echoey piano, and it kind of turned into, that's interesting. And he started playing with it, and then out pops the famous X-Files tune, complete with the whistle effect. And the rest is history, Andrew.
I would love to hear those first 8 efforts.
Yeah,
I think that would be very, very interesting to know what his creative process was.
Absolutely.
What those first ones would have sounded like, and how they would have played with the episode.
I think what Chris Carter was having issue with was maybe not that it was bad; it just was too complex for what he was looking for. He wanted something a little bit more simple and direct. The song itself, once they created, and it's actually called Materia Primoris. That's the official title of the X-Files theme song. Once it was completed, it has actually gone through a few changes, minor, and then one relatively big one by season 9. I would say the definitive version of the show song starts in season 3. He added a little bit more bass, a little bit more of a sting to it at key moments, and it gave it a little bit more life and energy to it. So we're going to play an example, the first 10 seconds of the season 1 theme, and then to kind of show you the change.
If you can identify the difference, you have an excellent ear, because I think that it's pretty damn subtle. But then Mike does do this, kind of for a living, so I guess he hears it. You ready to go?
We're ready.
So different. So different.
But you do notice in the keys that there's a little bit more of an echo in the second one. And then when that crash comes in right after that, we didn't hear it there, but it's a little bit
more bombastic.
Yeah, a little bit bombastic. And then, of course, it got a huge facelift for season 9, which is very noticeably
and shortened
different
too.
Mm-hmm.
It's much shorter in season 9. They chop off like a whole refrain at the end. So anyway, here's season 9 coming up.
That is not it.
Really, that is season 9. You'd have to really listen for it, but it's there.
No. There is I think they reserved it for mythology episodes, if I'm not mistaken. It's vastly different, but not a big
Oh, I see. I wondered why you were so on that point. I'm like, no, it sounds the same to me.
No, Mike, it is not noticeably different. It's noticeably
What is
same.
noticeably different about it is the visuals. Like They obviously had to do stuff to excise Mulder from it, and they updated Scully's look and they added the other agents, but it sounded a bit the same to me.
Well,
again, it's a bit wheezier, and they made it shorter. Okay, so I'm not crazy, is what you're saying.
But yes, we also played the wrong one there. So
okay, well, you can just cut all of this and put in the actual clip in post.
Well, tell you what, why don't we go into the next section? Why don't we key up the Tomb's spider fingers to get us into the moods? The moods.
Why don't we move on from this whole moment? Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it's actually called spider fingers, but certainly that sound effect, it's got to be in 20% of the shows because it is just so delightfully spooky and icky. First showed up in not the stretch. What is it? The pre-Tombs, episode, and it is so good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to hear it now. And that just covers everything from arms growing impossibly to little aliens running along,
to bugs,
to pustules busting. I mean, it's so much good stuff there. Perfect for the X-Files.
Yeah, usually
just
something.
A bunch of strings, I think, though. Eh?
Yeah, just kind of plucking the strings away using your fingers. Now, obviously, it's keyboard, but you get that sense something's lurking in the shadows every time that plays. But
big ass spiders.
We're here to talk about some of the. Yes, Libby says that sound is why she can't watch the show before bed, and to the credit of Mark Snow. But the show itself, as a whole, we're going to get into a few of the moods, the different themes he's gone through, the show itself has gone through, and kind of see how he matches those things and what he had to do to change to kind of match the show story. And the show, moreover, is obviously a drama. The music had to match the dark themes of this show in particular because it started out primarily, I would say, as horror or horror adjacent, mysterious craps going on. He had to use a wide variety of synthesizer sounds and textures to accomplish these X-Files themes. And he was big on layering sound effects and sampled instruments to make unique melodies and sounds come to life. And so starting off, again, horror and suspense were the main musical and scripted cues of the show. We were dealing with scary things, unusual things, so Snow would really focus on that with different methods. And I want to play a clip from F. Emasculata's opening.
Yeah, a brilliant bit of sound right there. Here we go.
Yeah. In that clip,
that's really good.
we get a real sense of dread and danger in that. And I mean, it's fairly simple. It's the same thing, just kind of repeated over and over. But there's that start and stop nature of it. There's a real sense of emptiness to it, a sense that the viewer themselves are a little bit lost. And, then when the horns come in, the strings kind of strain a little bit, very unnerving and unsettling. But it just builds on that initial mood. How did you feel about that piece?
Oh, I mean, and that theme comes up throughout the entire episode, which is something I really like in well-scored TV shows and movies, is when you have kind of the nuts and bolts of the theme, and then the composer reworks it or uses it in different ways throughout the series. A show that's doing it right now, well, in my viewing of it, I know it's been over for a while, but Severance has a theme song that they delve into in different ways, but it's like the musical identity of the show. In this case, it's the musical identity of the episode, which is infinitely more challenging because he's kind of creating new
themes,
musical wallpaper for each episode. So he's, in some episodes, it's more noticeable than others. Certainly, it's the 90s. He went down a path of, we're dealing with an Eastern premise. Let's use some quote unquote ethnic themes in the music, or bongo drums if we're in the jungle. He kind of went into some of those tropes, but it was still a nascent industry in some ways. But when it works so well.
Yeah.
And this is one of those episodes where it works so well.
Yeah, and I think to your point, the wallpapering of themes on an episode, I think that is something that's very common in the show, something that he utilized. There are several episodes that have a distinct sound to them. Soft Light comes to mind. That song, the didn't, it permeates the entire episode. It's a very specific thing. Colony and Endgame, those also have a similar theme that comes through them. It's something that I think is very challenging because he almost gives, aside from giving each episode life, he's kind of giving it its own identity, which is something that I would imagine was very difficult to do.
It would be hard to do it today, I think. You would be constrained a lot more by production. And even though when they're making these episodes, like they're putting it together, so they have to do them one per week. So there's a lot of production pipeline. They start these months in advance before they get to the point where they're releasable. But that means Mark Snow is juggling 3 or 4 episodes at a time, probably.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, we just spoke about Trevor, Andrew, a few short weeks ago. And I think
in season 6 days,
I think we shattered everyone's expectations when not one of us, but both of us put this on our list of best episodes.
Yeah.
I notoriously, and I've gotten a lot of flack for it, listed it as my favorite season 6. Not really. I haven't really gotten flack for it, but I think I surprised a few people. One of the key factors in this ranking was Snow's droning synth, and it really, for me, highlighted the dread of this episode. It wasn't overbearing, and it just really transports me to another place mentally. This is the kind of thing that I just can't overlook when I grade an episode. If I'm moved by the music, it bumps it up, and Snow really accomplishes this, not just here, but in plenty of episodes.
Should we arrest David Copperfield?
Yes, we should, but not for this.
Excellent.
One of the better lines in that show.
Had to put that in there. But yeah, I mean, that's just a small sample of that particular episode score. And there's something about the way he just lays on the key, lets it play out, and then goes down, cuts it down, brings it back up. And you hear like a hollow whistle or flute in there. very, very beautifully, but haunting as well. So I think,
and he uses that same palette later on, like in an action sequence. He's still using that, but in a different tempo and a different cadence. And again, that's the palette that he is choosing to paint the episode with. I mean, to mix metaphors here, but brilliant. He sticks to it. That I think is the general rule that he gives himself. He's not going to change gears in the middle of an episode. He's going to stick to what he starts, and it is quite beautiful.
And it's that one in particular strikes me because it's not a particularly dark episode, right? It's unsettling, and there's obviously a madman on the loose, but it's not like this horrifying story. It's just a kind of a cat and mouse game. And it strikes me as this music gives this episode a weight to it that I'm not sure it would have with another soundtrack to it. And that's just my perception of it, but I think it elevates that episode so much for me. The darkness has to come through in a variety of scenes and dialogues, Andrew. Themes like those heard in Colony and Endgame spring to mind with their simple thumping bass, never changing, just medium tempo, with a haunting horn wafting in and out at regular intervals. It's simple, but highly effective at capturing the tension and mood of the chase involved.
Squealing tires, the sound of the 90s.
I'm sorry that you put all those things together, that you've got that bass line that's coming through, that horn that sounds like it's off in the fucking distance on a fucking lake or something. And then that scratchy, staticky, rhythmic sound that comes through every once in a while. Oh, perfect. You put all those three together. That is one memorable theme for that episode.
It reminds me, do you ever see any Luc Besson films like La Femme Nikita or Léon?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He used a composer, his name is Eric Serra, and it's very similar industrial sounds that he uses in addition to the regular orchestral stuff. And there's a shared DNA in there. I'm not saying that it's completely the same. Obviously, Mark Snow has his own touch to it, but there is something about that in the 90s where they kind of went into a bit more metal.
Yeah.
To take it out of just the strictly orchestral soundtracks.
And I would definitely include Elliot Goldenthal in that. If you've ever heard the Alien 3 soundtrack, very experimental, very industrial.
Yeah.
There's a slight use of electric guitar, but it almost sounds like he's plugging in for a jam session, but you never hear anything beyond it. It's weird. It's cool stuff, but yeah, totally a 90s thing. I think they really began to embrace a little bit more electronica and experimentation with metal. We've covered a lot of moody and dark themes, but the show had its moods and it continued to evolve. There are episodes that deal in adventure along with that darkness. It didn't diverge completely from the show's initial themes, but when these deviations happened, Snow himself also had to evolve. And one of my favorite clips to begin this section comes from season 2 from Firewalker.
So you have to imagine flying in a helicopter over the terrain of northern BC for this soundtrack. And here we go.
There it is.
Helicopter 1672, Cascade Tower, squawk 4200, Island.
Helicopter 728, Cascade Tower, roger it down. Radar contact 3 months.
728, roger, altimeter 299, section post north side.
728.
Very 80s synth in that, eh?
Very much so. He's channeling some 80s pop in that. And man, that plotting synth scale and the underscoring strings during the helicopter landing sequence is just choice. Absolute choice. It's not a very long scene, and he doesn't come back to that in the rest of the episode, but he took it in this such an unnecessarily awesome direction in that scene. It definitely
sets it up very nicely. Yeah.
Very much so. You're taking in the scenery, you're taking in, where the agents are going. And yes, the agents are heading to a dangerous mission in an isolated location. That's what they do. But to me, in this scene, the music, whether it actually does this or not is irrelevant, but it just captures the mood of Scully's return to work. She's just been through something awful. She's choosing to work instead of rest. And this melody has so much mood to it that you can feel any hesitation and any fear that she might be feeling. And strangely enough, it's coupled with a small sense of adventure. I might be reading a little too much into that, but there is something special to that scene that comes out of left field. And like I said, they don't come back to that theme at all. It becomes very much a spooky X-Files episode after that. But I think it's a little bit of Scully in there.
I like that you read that in. I might say that it is a lot to read into that one initial piece.
It is.
It does doing a lot of heavy lifting, if that's the case.
Absolutely.
But I could easily be sold on that. I don't think that it is untoward to say that. I get the descent into adventure. Like it's hopeful. There's a little bit of melancholy in the background there. If you choose to bring that in as it's Scully that's having that, then I would totally be behind that. But all in all, like it's a nice thing to paint underneath the helicopter trip because they wanted to show that and they needed something to play underneath it, and I think it works really well.
Absolutely. And I'm known to embellish a little bit about what I feel from a scene or music in general. It really is whatever the listener gets out of it, which is kind of the beauty of music.
Art works.
That's how art works, exactly. So, yeah, just a great scene. It's the beginning of Mark Snow's matching how the show might be changing. It's that time, everyone. The Magus Media Production sales pitch. Please check out our homepage at magusmediaproductions.net so you can stay up to date on all of our shows. Check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Magus Media Productions, both of which have our Discord link on it, where you can join us for live shows as we record them for future release. At Magus Media Prods on X, our Patreon, patreon.com/Magus Media, where a $5 donation will help us keep the lights on and bringing you new content, and you get some stickers. Thank you for your consideration and support. Dodd Calm, Andrew, is our next next clip, and this is
The next journey.
another
The next point on our
example.
journey.
Yes, another example of the beauty Mark Snow can bring to an otherwise bleak and hopeless situation. I get shivers every time this one plays. It is a seemingly no-win scenario for the agents, and despite us knowing they're not actually going to kill them off and cancel a wildly successful show, we feel the weight of the scene with Snow's elegant and hopeful strings. Very poignant.
Let's see just how poignant it is.
I think I hear the wolf at the door.
So I think Mark Snow has a collection of metal pipes
He does.
that he would go to.
Talking about wallpapering an episode, that is that episode to a T right there.
Yeah. Boom, boom,
But
boom.
it's so effective because they are on a derelict
100%.
ship in the middle of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's decrepit. It's sinking. It's basically just a big lunk of metal. And there's 3 people on it, willing and waiting to die. So I think it's effective.
It's very effective. There's no doubt about it. It's still not out of the 80s synth pop territory.
No.
But it is very deliberately contrived. Like there's no awkwardness in the piece. You know, it's very designed to evoke, you know, this poignancy and this sense that they're at the end, and it's their swan song in a way. Of course, they pull the rug out from that when immediately the lights come on and the rescue team comes in, and you know they de-age by 50 years over the course of a week or something. But yeah. That's a different part of the episode. The music's great though.
Music's great. Let's just brush over the fact that the agents aged 50 years and de-aged 50 years in the span of a week.
Look, they obviously in that episode wanted to play with some aging effects.
Oh, absolutely.
And boy, howdy, they got their wish. Those guys looked terrible.
Poor Mulder, all shaky and unable to hold shit. Not a wrinkle in sight, those agents now. Somehow they managed with their Botox injections.
Interesting as the actors aged into seasons 10 and 11, what they looked like compared to what they thought they might look like in .com.
Yep. Not perfect, but
Not
close.
perfect.
I mean, when they get up there, when they're in wheelchairs, they might look the way they did in that episode, but we will see.
If they're heavy smokers, they might get to that point.
Yes.
I think the aging effects did try and give you the sense that this isn't completely natural aging. It's
No.
Yeah.
Definitely prompted by an unknown heavy salt.
heavy salts.
Heavy salts. But keeping with the theme
Well,
of
enough said about that one.
different. Well, yeah, can't dwell. But if you have anything else you'd like to say, Andrew, please do so. About that.
No. I have said all I need to say about .com. I agree with you. Effective music.
All right.
So I think we had our points then about it.
Keeping with the theme of different, what about Scully's tattoo theme? Never Again. Andrew, you had brought this one up, and it is, I fully agree, this is a beautifully haunting piece. Tell us about why this one works for you.
Well, I want to play it first so that people can have it in their minds when we talk about it. So here we go.
Another woman in my bed? Turn the sheets, Lever. Burn her. Burn her! on, Eddie.
Get control of yourself.
Ah, but it's good to lose control.
So it is so different than anything he usually does. It is just orchestrally wild is would be the words I would use. Like, he's using all the right instruments. And then he's also, I don't know if this is an interplay between the sound crew adding sound effects, if they're doing it in isolation to his music, but I think in this case they're not. I think they're very closely linked, because it's almost like he's using, or the episode production staff, whatever, they're using Jodie Foster's voice there as an instrument. And I just feel like it works so well to create this whole chaotic scene where
Very chaotic. Yeah.
dude is trying to bring Scully's body down to burn it in the incinerator, which every apartment building has, as we all know.
Absolutely.
But it is just so over. But it's both all over the place and tightly scripted. Like,
Yeah.
it's not so wild as to be out of the time signature or whatever. But it is. Again, it's so different than what he usually does. These sweeping horns, and he's got some guitar in there, and it just. He's taken everything he can out of his palette, and he's just thrown it at the canvas, and it's just a really neat piece.
Well, and I think he did so in a way that mirrors what the killer's doing. He's not in the right mind, so it has this very erratic feeling to the theme itself. And then you get you've got a synth that's just kind of playing its theme over and over, and then you get those stings that come through with the strings and the laughing. And again, like you said, it might be more of a sound production side of things, but all of that together creates a very erratic and uncomfortable experience, especially given what this guy's going through.
Yep. Well, I don't think I need to say anything more about that.
You don't need to say any more? I'm surprised you didn't choose the tattoo theme, which is what I thought you were talking about.
Oh, yes. No, I know what you're talking about. There's a different sound to that as well, but I think there's no difficulty for Mark Snow to go into emotional territory.
Right.
It's pretty easy to do that, but to then take like an action sequence and make it so wildly different, I think that to me is where he stands out.
The next one we want to talk about, another one of your picks here. There are times when Snow had to capture multiple opposing themes in one episode, like when Mulder dreams of the red dot in Paper Hearts. Now, the story itself for the episode is horrific. It is not fun. It is not exciting, and it's not adventurous. That being said, Snow took the story elements of Mulder dreaming of finding the girls, the Mad Hatter, and Discovery, and gave it all a whimsical feel during those scenes. Not because it's fun, but because it's curiosity. It's a play on perhaps what the children may have been thinking, and it's about innocence lost. So let's open with the opening scene of Paper Hearts. Things got dark, Andrew.
They got dark. I just noticed they use that same wind sound effect that they've used in season. I think the pilot actually, when Billy Miles is being beamed up to the spaceship, whenever.
But
But yeah, everything you just said.
it's an interesting and unique way to introduce an episode with such dark themes, right? And I mean, yes, he's going along with the script and what the visuals might demand, but that could have been approached in a different way. I think what he did there was really capture, instead of the scene itself, it captured, again, that innocence of the victims. And that was a very unique way to take it, I think.
Well, it's certainly our wonder of the adventure that Mulder is going on with, following the pretty red light, getting these clues. It's interesting. And then, as you say, it has this dark turn of like the girl being swallowed up into the leaves.
Yeah.
It's not the first time. Well, maybe that is the first time they do that. I have to think about the chronology, but I'm thinking about episodes like Home, where, it's not Mark Snow's music, but they are intercutting a violent moment with this, 50s crooner song.
Yeah.
Which is, so hard that they got that show taken out of syndication for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole scene is just brilliantly constructed, but the idea of intensifying the horror by brightening it with a happier tune is
Yeah. So
advanced.
When that horror strikes, it's all the more unsettling because of what you've just come out of. So very, very true.
In some ways, it's a bait and switch. Like they revel in doing that in the plot. They give us one thing and then later on turn it on its head, and that's the big reveal. In this case, it's kind of a musical version of that.
Yeah,
because we're being taken down this trail of clues. What is Mulder going to find? And then he finds it's a girl who's being ostensibly buried alive or something. But very disturbing imagery. So tough to score for sure.
Yeah. And part of me wonders how difficult it was for him to come up with unique melodies and tunes to come into these episodes. I mean, I know you have to go by what you're seeing on screen and what you have to deal with in the script, but, I think this was maybe a daring thing for him to do because of the nature of this episode and what the themes of the episode are. So kudos to him for trying something a little bit different and a little dangerous there.
I have to imagine he's so prolific. He's one of those people who just had a lot of different things going on in his head, would wake up with a tune and maybe in the shower thinking about something else and just jots it down immediately or records it somehow. So he's got a library of things he can go back to.
Could very well be.
Even just snippets that he can just drag in and be, what, I thought of this and I thought might be appropriate for that. Or maybe you can go away and just come up with stuff. But either way, like the amount of content that he created, clearly there was a well of creativity that he could draw on.
Absolutely. And other episodes that show Snow's opposing themes, like this opposes the nature and theme of Paper Hearts. Another episode would be, of course, the music from Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. From second one, the mysticism of the story and its characters is solidified with the plucking strings. Kind of innocent, very much sinister. He plays on the lightheartedness of Morgan's script at key moments, but in essence, composes music that can be used in multiple ways. The gentle strings are effective at both being light, yet they can be interpreted as dark and mysterious. And then there's the playfulness of the songs in general. The back and forth of the dark piano and mystical strings as they share their sort of exchange. It's subtle, it's mood setting and impressive, and I think it's very evident when the puppet is having his palm read. So why don't we play that?
So, what has brought you to Madame Selma?
Well, can you really know everything about me just by looking at my hands?
The palms tell me all.
I would just like for you to be able to tell me, why am I going to be doing the things that I'm going to be doing?
Madame Zelma, she's a palm reader, not a psychologist.
I know. It's just... I think I've somehow caught a glimpse of my own future. Myself. And I see me doing things that just seem so out of character for me. I mean, these are things that not only do I not want to be doing, but I can't even imagine myself capable of doing. And yet, there I am. I'm doing them.
Mister, please, you're hurting me.
I know. And I'm sorry. But you're a fortune teller.
No.
You should have seen this coming.
Please.
Oh, Mark.
Good
Bringing
stuff.
us down the garden path and something sweet, and then it turned to dishes.
Good stuff. But I just really like that scene because of, everything's kind of smooth and serene until they start talking.
Mhm.
And then that deep piano comes in whenever he opens his mouth. And you definitely feel something's about to happen. And sure enough, it does. So,
Well, that scene doesn't work without, the puppet's actual performance.
Mhm.
Just that he's so nice,
Right,
until
right.
he's like crushing her hands and saying, "No, I know I'm hurting you. I'm real sorry about that, but
This is gonna happen.
Just who I am. This is who I am." I'm just thinking that I hadn't really drawn the connection between, and I know we're talking about Mark Snow, but I hope you'll indulge me in this.
absolutely.
This episode of Clyde Bruckman, the puppet character here, and Milagro, the
writer.
psychic brain surgeon guy there, how they were both essentially written to be that way. They have no agency as characters. They are villains because they have been made to be villains. I don't know if they're written. They're certainly not written by the same person.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's a
Chris Carter's take on Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. Like maybe the idea struck him and he subconsciously wrote something to honor it.
Yeah, I like that. Makes sense to me. Anyway, not their first trip to the well there, but an effective one because it does draw into focus why do we do the things we do, and there might not always be a deeply seated reason for how things come along. Sometimes you're just born bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, great music in that scene. Look at that, bringing it back.
And I also want to, we don't have to play a clip or anything, but I just want to talk about another scene. He injects some of his goofiness in the future scenes of this episode. One of my favorites is when Mulder is introduced and the strings kind of come out of nowhere and ascend into this magical cue as if he's some otherworldly investigator, but he's just Mulder. He's just a man. And it's all because of, the way these two detectives were talking about the stupendous Yappy. But it's just, Mark Snow leaning into the mysticism of the episode. It's corny and it's meant to be corny and it's funny. I like it. So,
yep. It's so good.
Moving on to more emotional stuff. And I had one song in mind here. This one is one of my favorite emotional pieces. It comes at the tail end of the show's original run. It is actually in the season 9 episode Release at 32 minutes in the episode. And why don't we play that?
Ralph Hayes died in 1978 in a car accident.
When? Let me see that.
Cadet Hayes' real name is Stuart Mims of Mendota, Minnesota. Last known residence, the Dakota County Psychiatric Facility.
He was a mental patient?
Diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, voluntarily institutionalized in 1990. In 1992, he checked himself out and disappeared. There's another thing. We can also place him in New York City in 1993, the year your son was murdered.
so fucking good. It's so fucking good. And I gotta be honest, I think part of why that's so good is the build up to that. You know, the conversation that they're having is accusatory towards Agent Fulmer or Assistant Director Fulmer. And he turns it around, and Doggett is then caught off guard by, hey, the person you are dealing with and working with to catch this other criminal, he's the guy who killed your son. And with that realization that comes over Doggett's face in that moment, and then the swelling of that music, and it just comes out of nowhere. This is it. This is going to be the end of his story, one way or the other. Now, I won't get into the details of that story, but it's just a beautiful
2 seasons for us to get into that.
Yeah. Just a beautiful moment. And it comes out of nowhere. And I love the way they just roll into the SWAT takedown of this guy. There's no fight or anything. There's no tension. It's just, this is about Doggett right now. And it's the ending of his myth arc, I guess you could say. Very, very beautiful, beautiful song.
It's very interesting they decided to go this way. You could have used vastly different scores for that moment. It's an action scene.
Yeah.
The FBI are raiding this guy's apartment. They're literally smashing down the door and doing their hard entry. You would expect there to be a hard action scene music behind that. This is a show on Fox, so there should be some gunfire and ricochets and a tight gunfight to end it out.
Someone throwing a grenade over a desk. No!
Yeah, exactly. Jumping on it, blowing himself up to save his comrades. You know, all of those things. But yet, none of that happens here. And it is a little favorite thing of mine where they are defying expectations in that moment. And it's a moment of peace in a way. Like, they obviously could have crafted it differently. It could have been just Fulmer and Doggett going in to pick him up. You know, they didn't have to do this hard entry, but they also follow the handbook and say, this guy is probably a violent offender, and we just don't do that. We don't walk in on our own. We go in with a SWAT team. So how do you relegate those elements together? Use a really light soundtrack instead, and it just completely changes the tenor of that scene.
Absolutely.
So the power of music, well illustrated here.
And the scene itself is all about Doggett and what he's been going through even before he was on the show, up until this point where he's about to get his Samantha Mulder moment, where his story is officially coming to an end. What's made him who he is, you know, this is that moment. So now it's in front of us. And I think that music has a lot to do with telling us what he's feeling right now. And it's just such a beautifully 100%. Heartbreaking scene, because it is the end of his story, despite, you know, we want it to be over, but at the same time, you know, that truth, that uncomfortable and horrifying truth for him comes through in the music. So very beautiful. I wanted, ladies and gentlemen, to use closure.
Speaking of closing moments, yes.
Well, I wanted to use the cue in Closure, where Mulder finds his sister. And I'm like, I knew in the back of my head, I'm like, I know Mark Snow did the music for the episode and that Moby had something to do with it. Come to find out, the scene I wanted to use is all Moby. And I'm like,
yeah, Mark Snow not involved.
No. So
it's good music.
It's beautiful music, but we shouldn't, you know, it's a Mark Snow episode. I was so disappointed, when I found out it wasn't actually Mark Snow, because I'm like, this is the most emotional moment of the show. And I have to be honest with that. You know, Release is a close second, but Closure, we'll get to it in season 7, but a little disappointed.
I got to admit, it's a pretty hackneyed moment. I mean, I know it's big. We'll get there.
Whoa.
But
Jesus.
That's the writers realized, and they've been carrying Samantha for 9 seasons or whatever, 9 seasons, and they haven't figured it out how they're going to get there. And they're like, okay.
Oh, so you're talking about the story?
I'm talking about the story.
Yeah, I got you.
Feel the music. Feel the music's also a little bit No, I'm not going to go there.
We'll get there, Andrew. We got 12 episodes.
We'll get there.
13 episodes, whatever.
Anyway,
so we're going to be wrapping up our little Mark Snow tribute here, but the music of Mark Snow handled this show with an expertise that gave it a significant amount of power, as we just experienced with Release and other songs. This was easily his most prolific work, his most extensive, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show. He composed over 200 episodes, give or take. And, there were some reused themes here and there. We talked about in season 6, the SR-819 used a lot of the music from the movie. So maybe he got sick or whatever. But the point is he did a lot of work for this show. And he skillfully weaves the compositions from scene to scene to really draw out the themes of each of them. He undoubtedly touched a lot of people's lives with this music, not just on the X-Files, but many other shows as well. And it goes to show that kind of impact when on July 4th, I got the news of his death on like an actual news channel rather than Facebook or something like that. So he impacted people, and he was an important figure in television music and themes and film. So I couldn't help but be extremely saddened by his passing, as I'm sure many other people were. Being musically driven and such, Andrew and I are... A retrospective was an obvious choice. And I do appreciate Andrew bringing it up and pushing for this to happen today, because he was right in thinking this was the time to do it. I wanted to put it off and give us time to create something a little bit more, but I think he was right in his assessment that it should happen today, because we were coming to record anyway. Yeah. So thank you, Andrew, for that.
Well, my pleasure, Mike. Hey, I got one more clip for you.
Oh, yeah,
I think we need to share this one. Let me see if I can share it here. Get that window up there. Boom. I think it's worth noting that he was not afraid to shy away from the iterative nature of his music, like actually using the theme within the episode as diegetic music, which means it's actually part of it and not just a theme in the background. And this, of course, is from Jose Chung, the Alien Autopsy theme.
Whoa. Hey, you can't suppress the truth. The people have a right to know. Roswell!
Hey! Does that camera work?
Is this actual footage of the alien autopsy, or simply a well-made hoax?
Oh, man, I just loved it when they did that.
Oh, so good. And he's making fun of himself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the whole episode's making fun of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
His music is definitely part of it.
And that's another thing worth mentioning. This song, the theme song, not only was it good, we like it, for it does its job here, but it charted on a lot of music charts, right? So it got, I think its highest rank was number 2 on at least a couple European charts. And I think that was the first or second year it was around. So it was an insanely popular song. And beyond that, I would say this is probably one of the most parodied or poached songs of all time for any paranormal documentary you want to mention. I think he unwittingly gave the paranormal documentary a voice in hey, this is where we should take the theme song, because you can hear that whistle in so many documentaries. It's like, all right, calm down.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to know what you're inspired by in that case.
Right.
100%.
And in the chat here, Maddie Conrad says, there's a moment of music at the end of First Person Shooter that is beautiful, and the episode just does not earn it, but he's glad it exists. And that episode,
nice.
Yeah, absolutely. that is an episode, ladies and gentlemen. That is. We'll get to that one.
We'll get to that soon enough.
Yeah. Well, do you have any closing words, Andrew?
I don't. I think that is a really good summary, certainly from our perspective of what the legacy of Mark Snow has been to us. Certainly, we're not even done going through all of the episodes. I'll bet that there are even more examples of his amazing composure. But even that, just the brief survey of the episodes we've touched on, and we both had like 5 other episodes we wanted to reference, and I think for time we cut out the other ones. But his music told a story, and the episodes were only made stronger with his music. That's what I would end with there.
Yeah, he will be forever remembered. I wish his family the best in this unfortunate time. Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Mark Snow, and rest easy, sir. And that is the episode. Maybe now you can play the season 9 theme song. Maybe we can close it with that.
Maybe you can.
Maybe I can.
I didn't find a good episode.
I think the first and second episodes, any mythology episode, it is not. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilepod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming.